Today's episode, we have Nicholas Choo with us. He's a friend of mine and he's a coach, and he's been into this fitness industry for years, helping clients in fat loss and also helping them to move better through training and also overall transform clients into a fitter version of themselves.
Thanks for having me here, Faris. And I really like what you did for your Strength Dojo page, and it shares a lot of great information to educate and inspire as much people to get started on weight training, which is a good direction and what we want to see in the fitness industry. Yep. So of course, lifting weights is always the solution.
Yeah, lifting weight.
Just a brief introduction of myself. My name is Nicholas Choo, and I'm a coach for almost for 4 years, going to be 4 years already. And I actually helped many people to solve problems on how to train, lift weights properly in safety, and as well as fix their lifestyle towards on getting better life quality and getting healthier. So fun fact about me, I was very obese back then and very unhealthy. And that time, I actually have a sudden crazy goal that I want to step on the bodybuilding stage and to be the best shape of my life. Is because of some of the personal reasons that I want to prove myself on something, and that began my journey from obese to quite ripped, like 7% body fat. During stage.
So you've competed before? You've competing in bodybuilding show before?
In 2018.
I see.
And it was a men's physique division. Yep. So it's I'm still wearing board shorts.
Are you wearing it now?
So
because I can't see from here. Right.
Yeah. So I find this journey like from very obese until to become the best shape of my life. Actually, I mean, this particular journey is very important for me as a coach because the biggest piece of this journey is for me to help me to relate most people what they have struggled that who are same background as me.
I see.
So because I was obese, I understand what are the mental and what are the struggles that people has to face on going through a fitness industry. And ever since then, as I help more people, I start to become hooked in helping people, to coach people, to help them to transform their bodies, help them live healthier, fitter, better life quality, and it keeps goes on now.
Today's topic, we're gonna talk about tempo. Okay, having a good control in every exercise you do can improve your performance and also prevent any injuries. Okay, so what is tempo? Tempo is a definition of a good and proper form control throughout the full range of motion of each exercise that we do. And in simple terms, tempo is basically like how fast or how slow you can lift the weight each repetition of an exercise. So in any general resistance or strength training program, tempo is basically is what we need. Is like a compulsory in order not only to prevent injury, but also like getting a full benefit of it. But in general strength training or resistance training, you will have some control in every exercises. Benefits may vary. It depends on the goal of the program or the sports, but it sticks to the same principle, which is to maintain proper movement mechanics for each exercise. And another benefit of tempo is also like you are able to analyze and address issues such as stability and mobility. Okay. You can also address technical issues, your technique of the lift, your cues, the execution of the lifts as well. How does the tempo look like? So first we have the start of the lift, eccentric. Let's take squat as an example for this tempo. Okay, so before you start of the lift, your starting position, as you go down, as you descend down to the bottom position, that is eccentric. Okay, you will start your control from there. And in between, second one is in between, which is the pause, right? Where you pause usually is at the bottom position, or basically like at the end, until the end of the extension or flexion of a muscle or group of muscles. Okay, and the third one, we have back to starting position. So from the bottom position, you're gonna go backwards, or basically back to the starting position. We call that as eccentric. All right, you ascend up back to the starting position, and after you finish all these three, you will get to end of the lift, which is end of the repetition at the top position there. You either pause or you can also continue. It depends on the tempo that you are doing. So let's check at the tempo example here. 3, 2, 0, 1. Okay, so what does this mean is basically from top position, as you go down, you should control either 3 seconds or 3 count, descending to the bottom position. Okay, this is 3 count, 1, 2, 3, and as you go down, the second one is bottom position. It basically is in between the rep. Okay, the number here says 2, so it's basically you pause for 2 counts. Yeah, 2 count or 2 seconds, and then you're gonna go back up, ascend to the top position again, which is the concentric part of movement. You usually, most of exercise you don't really need to control, but some exercise you can control as well, but most of the time it's 0. So you just go back as fast as you can without any count to the top. And on top, usually you pause for 1 count or 1 second before you continue your second repetition. Okay, and if you have like 5 to 8 reps of this, you need to do the same tempo for each rep. Okay, general duration of tempo, the measurement unit is either 1 second or 1 count. Okay, but most of the time it's 1 second. For general tempo, it's 1010. Let's take the dumbbell bench press as an example. From the top, you go 1, and then at the bottom it says 0, so you don't need to pause there. And then as you go back up, there's also 1, and if you see 0 right here, basically there's no pause on top. You can just continue the second repetition, and you just continue for every rep. So it's like 1, 1, 1, 1, right? And then we have tempo for hypertrophy.
Speaking in general, it means that you need to do a lot more control. First thing, control in terms on you are fighting the gravity. Mm-hmm. So fighting the gravity, meaning to say that let's say you give an example. If some people, when they don't control on the eccentric, they are following against the gravity. All right, but if you're slowing down, you're actually doing a little bit of fighting on the gravity itself, and using the muscles to work on the movement control itself. So technically speaking, you would need a lot more. You would need donate some seconds on the eccentric phase. So the eccentric phase is always the first number, meaning that you are lowering down the weight itself. All right. So in this case, if let's say talk about a pressing, all right, so the movement starts from the pressing from here, and you start lowering down 4 seconds, all right, or any seconds that's a little bit longer, all right. So when you spend more time on eccentric, it produces more, it creates more muscle damage, and then eccentric, when coming down eccentric, your muscles would work harder. Basically, is you need to use your muscles to control the weight itself when coming down, all right. And then as you come up, the reason why there's no explosive, or there's no fixed formula to say is that how many seconds you want to come up, but the end goal is that you want to recruit as much muscle, all right. So you don't want to have any compensation on the movement itself. So compensation of the movement itself, for example, some people, they will just find an easy way to push the dumbbell up. For example, now I'm swinging my back up and down. By doing this action, I'm not actually texting the muscle on the shoulder itself, all right? So the reason why I would spend 2 seconds to push the dumbbell up is because I make sure that I'm stable, okay? So when I'm stable, I have more time to actually recruit the shoulder muscles to push the dumbbell. All right, so that becomes that the entire set of the effect is actually more towards on very emphasis on the particular muscle itself.
Power is usually done for in powerlifting. Basically, you have some you control just around 1 for the eccentric, but it depends. I see some powerlifters having more control during their descent of the squat, especially, and they still can move it really well. But usually it's around 1 to 2 in general for higher intensity work. Okay? You don't have pause in the bottom because in competition you don't need to pause for squat.
Correct.
But for bench press, you need like a 1 count, 1 to 2 count for the pause command. Okay. The reason I wrote X here, X meaning is explosive. So you have to go explosive as possible, because there's no extra points in controlling the concentric. So,
correct.
True. And on top you have 2, because in powerlifting, especially in competition, you need to pause for a while at the top before you re-rack. And same goes for deadlift, same goes for bench. Okay, these are just the general technique type of tempo work that I've seen in the fitness, in the program. So first we have 3 count for eccentric, 0 for bottom position, and explosive, and 2 at top. Second one is pretty popular in powerlifting, where you pause, you have some tempo, and also pause at the bottom. Okay, usually from my experience, powerlifters do this to improve their technique more for heavier lifts. Same as the top, except you will have 1 count pause at the bottom position. Okay, this one is tempo, pause, and also control concentric. This one is usually done for where you want to not only improve on your technique, but also increasing the metabolic damage to your muscles. Like, so basically, like working on your technique, but at the same time also like having extra benefits on the hypertrophy work. Usually,
correct. So the tempo itself here, how you organize it, it means that let's say taking an example exercise for itself, let's say take squats, implement in this 3-1-3-0 tempo. So in the beginning, you will drop your weight for 3 seconds, okay, and then as you pause 1 second, and as you control it up. So what does the controlling up is that he actually did a lot of it also have a lot of carryover
Very well.
for strength athletes, where you need to actually it teaches you how to stay tight when you're pushing the weight up as well. And at the same time, having tempo like this, at 3 seconds on the concentric, it actually surface a lot of weak range from different strength athletes. So for example, some athletes, they struggle at the bottom of the squat, but some, they struggle more on the mid range of the squat. So what basically means is that if I add more tempo on the concentric side, all right, it actually one thing surface where's the weak point of the lifter, and second thing is that it teaches the lifter to learn how to stay tight and overcome the weak range from there. So basically, it's some technique to actually helps to break strength plateaus. All right. So for when it comes to muscle building, it will work a lot more on recruiting, learning how to recruit as much muscle fiber in 3 seconds. And this tempo is bloody hard for I mean, like if let's say putting on a hypertrophy work. So usually this tempo will be quite advanced for some people.
Yeah, it's really advanced. I mean, I never tried for the controlled concentric or eccentric portion.
Yeah.
But after hearing like what you explained, maybe I should implement it as well in my training. And also longer pause, 1 to 3 counts. But I want to ask you, for this type of tempo work, what's like the percentage or like the load range that is advisable, like, I mean, to use? Because I would say it's pretty hard for heavier weights to control. So I think usually it's
it really depends on who is the person. For example, either it's from muscle building or a barbell athlete, for example. So let's talk about putting on a barbell athlete, either like a weightlifter or a powerlifter. Okay, so usually some lifters, different lifters will have a different sticky point. So sticky point refers to which part of the lift you struggle. So for example, bench press, some people struggle at the bottom. All right, some people struggle at the bottom of the position. Some people struggle at the middle of the portion. Some people struggle close to the lockout position. So having to actually improve on the position where it's weak. All right. So what concentric does is that it actually highlight which are the portions that the lifter's weak at. So for example, so if let's say translate into a program, you will use this as an accessories. Yeah, and it also depends on which season when the barbell athlete is. So usually this kind of tempo, it will work very well on off season, but as close to the season, the lifters need to work even harder for the tempo that's close and what are the competition wants. Yep. So this will be much more suitable on the off season itself to improve the lift and utilize the concentric phase to actually carry over to the main lifts. And things like besides concentric, there are some people that they use an ISO hold. They implement ISO hold inside the concentric phase, where let's say they can be break in 3 positions on the concentric. Let's say talk about bench press. So some people can actually place a pause at the 1/4 of the concentric, and then maybe they want to pause for 5 seconds, and then 5 seconds, and 5 seconds, and continue. So it's just another way on to expose those weaker range and when you iso hold at the weaker range, you actually force your body to generate and recruit as much muscle fiber at the weak range. So that this is one of the ways that to actually break plateaus.
Whenever we have sticking point at certain phases, like for squat, most people having issue with the bottom position. So the implementing pause variation will help them strengthening that position. It's strengthening the surrounding muscles in that area. Yeah.
Correct. And what pause actually did is actually putting you in a disadvantaged position.
Disadvantage.
Yep. So once you are actually getting stronger in the disadvantaged position, naturally you will make strength carry over to your main lifts.
How do you usually program all the tempo work for yourself? Usually, how long is the tempo for every or certain exercise in your program?
That's a good question because I train all kinds of tempo. But the end goal of implement tempo is actually getting as much different stimulus on the muscle, and it also really depends on the training effect on the workout that I am looking for. So give an example that I'm actually currently I'm just training for body composition, build as much muscle as I can. Strength is not the predominant, but however, doesn't mean that if I don't train strength, my strength will drop. It's just that predominantly I will improve more on muscle gains, improve more on a better body composition, but a little bit of increase of the strength. So to begin with, I mean like tempo. It's a tool. It's a tool that has massive influence on the reps, sets, and also different kind of stimulus. And of course, there's always if ask a bodybuilder that if I can use 2 kilos dumbbell to grow my bicep as big as possible, I will stick to 2 kilos.
Oh.
Yeah. So this is just the analogy on how tempo can actually influence the reps, sets, and stimulus. So technically speaking, tempo is just a tool to manipulate a lot of areas. So the first thing will be manipulating the overall difficulty of the exercise. All right. So you can also, let's say some people, they are used to actually doing a dumbbell press like 40 kilos, like reps, like like tempo. But if I specify, say that I want a 4 seconds eccentric and have a good pause at the bottom and make sure that your muscles recruit as hard as possible and squeezing it 1 second, then 40 kilos might not happen this way. So it could be, sometimes it could be down to 20 kilos for 10 reps, but the amount of stimulus that you get from a quick rep, it's different compared to a 20 kg and a controlled fashion. So of course, from here itself, tempo is actually teaching you how to make use your muscle properly. All right. So when you know how to make use of your muscle properly, naturally it will helps to carry over better on your exercise form and execution. So when it comes to building muscle, execution is the key, and setting up the position in a disadvantaged mechanics is also very important, because when it comes to building muscle, you want to actually stay in a disadvantaged mechanics, not in a advantage mechanics. So our role is a little bit different. Like for strength athletes, because everything is in a competition mode, you want to lift as strong as you want. So that will have to set yourself up in advantage mechanics that you can lift as much as you can. But when it comes to building muscle, you want to set up yourself in a disadvantaged position to challenge the muscle. So So from here itself, tempo is very important to actually influence the sets and reps on the difficulty itself. So the more if I can make 2 kilos curl difficult, then that's the goal on stimulate as much muscle growth. Yeah, and tempo itself, it can be also one of the ways to dictate what are the training outcome. So training outcome meaning that either is neurological base, hypertrophy base, or metabolic demand. So neurological phase meaning that like powerlifting, heavy work like 85% above. So hypertrophy meaning 85% below towards 70, and then metabolic base is more things like you can do up to 20 reps or high reps on this kind of rep range. So and so by adjusting the tempo itself, it actually contributes to time under tension. So time under tension and tempo is a separate thing, but what made up the time under tension, it's the total tempo itself. Yeah, correct. And tempo is also one of the very important tools to highlight the weaker portion of the lift. Things goes like a pause, iso hold, to actually recruit, to actually teach the person to recruit as much muscle fiber, to break strength plateaus, and also helps to rehab purpose for people who are actually coming from recovering from injury, to actually help them to build strength back from a specific range. So how I program my workout program is actually I base on a wave of periodization, where on some phases I will spend more time on predominantly hypertrophy work and metabolic work, and on different phases, let's say each block of my training will last like 3 to 4 weeks, and then my next block I will focus more on neurological side, which is more on relative strength, and a little bit on functional hypertrophy. So it goes like a wave on periodized those kind of program, where I actually put it in this way. So what's the reason on putting on a periodization on the block itself? It's actually to prevent the body to be adapt on the same exact tempo and same exact exercise. At the same time, it's always a rule that you want to actually do different things.
Tempo is a really great tool, but like you said, it has different roles. For powerlifting, most of the time you want to improve the positioning. Most of the time you want to improve the technique of squat, bench, and deadlift. Okay, not really much on the muscles part, but when you do bodybuilding, you want to get more benefits from all the exercises. So the tempo will be different from powerlifting program, right?
Correct. One thing I want to add on hypertrophy. Hypertrophy has two types. One is functional hypertrophy. Okay. Second is hypertrophy itself. So functional hypertrophy meaning you want to get stronger, but without look bigger. Yeah. So which means to say that there's a term called myofibula. All right. So myofibula, it's a muscle fiber that it won't grow thicker in size, but it will get stronger. Okay. So sarcoplasma is actually your muscle will grow as much fluid. So it actually grows more in size predominantly. So some people will say that, okay, I think that one, the myofibula and the sarcoplasmic, I will just generally go through it because it's a little bit technical.
Yeah.
So myofibula refers to more on functional hypertrophy work. Sarcoplasmic is more on a hypertrophy work, means that you want to grow as much muscle, but strength is not a concern. So in strength athletes, is more towards on functional hypertrophy. So functional hypertrophy, it's more on the total time and attention of the rep, so yeah, of the set is actually shorter. However, for hypertrophy muscle building, your total time and attention will a little bit longer.
So it's the total time. Okay.
Correct. So the question over here is that for strength athletes, because the reason why they don't want to get bigger is because first thing, they have weight class restriction. All right. So when weight class restriction, if you get bigger, you're not going to compete the same class, and that means that you will don't have chance to get medal, don't have the chance to get good placing. So that's why strength athletes, they want to get stronger but not in big size. So all they care is actually how much they lift on the competition.
Yes, true.
So the hypertrophy work will be a little bit different. So it will actually teaching the hypertrophy work for strength athletes will be much more on how much can they recruit as much muscle in a short period of time. Then when it comes to building muscle is not about carrying heavy loads. However, it's more on how well you contract the muscle and how much you stimulate the muscle. So some people who can bench quite heavy, but if they want to build, for example, if the goal is want to build muscle, it's not about moving the heaviest weight, but is to focus more on each rep. How much stimulus can you provide from the rep itself?
Usually, you see like sometimes there are like a lot of hypertrophy programs. They have a lot of exercise, a lot of total volume in 1 week, but you don't really see any tempo prescription in it. So most of the time, a lot of lifters are just doing all the exercise, but they don't really do it properly with a good tempo. So do you think that like I say, tempo is like the biggest factor for muscle growth?
For related back to because some about volume, I would say volume has its place, but if you cannot work on the exercise properly, as in building a lot more internal connection, then the volume doesn't work. So what it means is that if let's say I give 2 examples. Some people curl this way, and some people literally learn to cue themselves on drive the elbow down on the pad, all right, and there's no elevation. So, and when I curl, I just curl only my active range on the bicep as much as I can, and I release it down. So let's say compared to just now and to fast reps. So let's say I put 2 person into the same paper of volume. The person who knows how to make a lot of internal cues, they will eventually earn more and gain more muscle. So what I'm trying to say is that volume is just the paperwork, but what your body cares is actually the stimulus itself. So if some people, they couldn't provide as much stimulus, volume is not the answer for them. I would say execution is the most important part of the portion. So once you get very well on the execution, then volume works. So this is one of the criteria on building muscle itself. It's all about creating a different type of stimulation, putting your body in a disadvantaged mechanics, and time to time always rotate on different angles and different variations, grips, or other different types of resistance profile, and that's how it actually creates different stimulus in the muscle. Then only volume starts to come in.
Do you find tempo work useful for your clients, especially for the beginners?
100%. So tempo work is a first thing. Why I like tempo to actually coach clients who are beginners, because first thing, it's a very crucial tool to teach them how to use their muscles, and it's a good form. It's a good way to actually teach them on form correction, because they are stuck. They are slowing everything down. When things are slowing down, everything surface, and you will immediately just notice that, okay, this is something wrong, and you like want to keep your back tight and all this kind of correction that what coach can actually adjust. And at the same time, for beginner clients, I would emphasize a lot more on exercise, more on technique acquisition base. So it's not about how much they can lift, but it's more on develop better technique acquisition, develop better exercise execution. You want the beginners to actually learn how to recruit as much muscle as they can in the exercise. So it means that as much as they can, and make the exercise itself work. And I find that technique acquisition and exercise execution for beginners is both are the most important element, which is I can use tempo to adjust, and I can use tempo to actually help them to make good progress, all right, and teach them how to exercise properly. And by doing this, they already decrease a big chance of getting injured in the gym.
True.
Yeah, and at the same time, if beginners that they master the technique acquisition and the exercise execution, eventually it will fast track a lot more to actually to go where they are. Because if you know how to work on exercise properly, then there's even more exercise you can do. It's like more like an unlock version.
The unlock.
Yeah. It's like if you can do very well on a dumbbell press, then of course you can progress to do better more on different variations of press or barbell work. And then if barbell is getting better, then you can progress with another types of advanced exercise. So it's more like an unlock thing. Whereas if some people that they don't prioritize on learning how to control, then of course they will not make a good progression. Because if you're not making good control, your chances of getting injured in the gym for exercise definitely increase.
Yeah.
And if you get injured, then it just sets you back, and you get injured again, it sets you back, and then you eventually the person will lose confidence, and then they will just let go. Just like me, personally, I actually injured one of my shoulder. I had a shoulder impingement, and because last time I don't know how to train, but all I know is that if I want a big chest, I bench press every day. Eventually, I was getting so tight that a little bit hunchback because the pec is tight, and all I can do is I raise my arm like a Hitler. This is the max that I can raise. But now it's no problem and stuff like that. So come back to if let's say this is just only what I know, that if I want to build big chest, then I have to bench press. Then if that time, and I'm sure that time my technique wasn't good, my form was all wrong. All I did is just following what people do, and eventually that shows that my technique sucks and my execution sucks, and that's where I will have high injury on shoulder injury. And when I have injury, then it sets me back. So until I actually find someone to help me to actually make progress, and then as I master the technique acquisition part, and that goes on, and it just makes you progress further. It's like a unlock.
I mean, in powerlifting, fatigue management is really important. I mean, there are times where even though you have perfect technique, good control, but there are days where you are really fatigued or sore. No matter what you do, you will lose control on some exercise, on some heavy or higher intensity exercises. That's where you need to kind of like drop the ego down to prevent any risk of injury, and just because
Correct.
you know that control is important. Even in competition, you see some people like struggling at some attempts and fail or injure themselves lah. I mean, if they
Correct.
can't control the weight on top, they can't even control the rest of the movements, the eccentric and every, yeah.
Correct. Yeah, you bring a very good point on especially for powerlifting athletes. I think control is actually, speaking on implement tempo on strength work is actually very important to teach most of the strength athlete to learn how to stay tight all the time, to actually learn on bracing for a long period of time to actually make the lifts. So when you're actually getting better on bracing for bracing and stay tight for long period of time, of course you will have less chances to get injured first thing, because most of the injured happens is when you are relaxed or you lose tightness.
Yeah, true. When you are relaxed.
Because powerlifting is a grinding sport. So stay tight, learning how to stay tight for a long period of time, and it is very important. And also learning how to control throughout the motion is crucial.
Even though like some lifters, they prefer an explosive way of technique, even though it's really explosive, you still have to you still have a sense of control during the eccentric motion, especially like going down to the squat, everything. Even though if you see some even weightlifters, you can see that they are really explosive, but during the eccentric motion, they are actually controlled in a very fast way. How to say? They are not like dive bombing. They are controlled, but really fast. Yeah.
Correct. I think with like for weightlifters, they are excellent in tuning themselves with different kind of work. For example, some of course their sports are more on velocity sports, so they need some of the times they need the stretch reflex for a clean for a snatch that coming up from the bottom. They really need the stretch reflex to actually assist them, because this is their sports criteria. It's not about they doing it for fancy or cheating. It's just that it's just a sports criteria. At the same time, I actually seen some weightlifters, they did a lot on tempo. So they call it slow squats, where like they just going slow as much as they can, and then spend like literally like 10 seconds on pausing from the squat, and then come up itself. So their goal is to actually strengthen the weakest portion of the squat, to actually just for that one lift on the snatch, or either from the clean itself.
So we talked about duration of tempo earlier, like 3 to 5 seconds. Most of the time it's 3 to 5. Do you think that a longer tempo benefits you more in terms of hypertrophy effect, or building muscles? So do you think that having a higher duration of tempo is benefit more, or is it?
Yes and no, actually. Yes and no. So actually, what happens? Okay, so let's say we are talking about spending more time on eccentric phase of the exercise. What happens is that you are actually just produce more muscle damage, micro tears on the eccentric phase. And however, some just give an example. Some bodybuilders, when they're closer to competition, building muscle and making more muscle damage is not their goal. when close to competition, because closer to competition, the recovery will be shit.
Really?
So yeah, so therefore they need to switch the tempo to concentric side. So means that learning how to actually squeezing the muscle as you work on the muscle. So that will be as closer to bodybuilders will use concentric side to train, to actually teach the muscles to squeeze, and it carries over to the posing. All right. So yes and no. So if let's say I spending more longer time in eccentric, if the goal is to create more muscle damage is the goal, which is part of the criteria for muscle hypertrophy, then yes, I will spend more time on eccentric phase on the tempo itself. All right. So again, in if let's say translate to spending more time on concentric side, it's more concentric side is more on higher metabolic demand, which means burn a lot more calories, but not so much on creating muscle damage. So it depends. So sometimes it can be used for fat loss purposes, or it could be some application for bodybuilders, because bodybuilders, when they're closer to comp, their recovery is not good, and therefore it's not ideal for them to spend time in an eccentric phase. So they will have to spend more time on concentric phase just to get the pump, burn some calories, get leaner, and just teaching the muscle on learning how to squeeze. All right. So and if let's say we are talking about building muscle, yes, spending more tempo is part of the factor, but building muscle is all about exposing your body for different types of stimulus, and you have to do this from time to time, as in like different block of training. All right. So from different block of training, what actually creates different stimulus is actually from choosing exercise from different angles, different variations, different types of grips, and also spend different time in different tempo as well. So I give you an example. Let's say the first block of training, if I emphasize more on 5 seconds eccentric on most of my exercise, then my second block of my training, I will focus more on adding a pause at the bottom, but spend lesser time on my eccentric. All right. Then the the third block of training, I will mix it up. Or I will have add on different variations on the exercise or angles, or add a pause at a disadvantage on the exercise itself. So to actually create as much stimulus as you can. So when it sums up, yes, spending more time in tempo actually can help. It's partially part of the factors to grow muscle, but at the same time, for long term, you need to actually expose yourself in different types of tempo. Either short tempo or explosive tempo is part of the journey itself.
Comparing like 8 seconds eccentric of a squat to a 3 second eccentric squat, like,
okay,
do they have any difference? Or
yes, there will be a difference. First thing, 8 seconds. Okay, the more time you spend on eccentric, generally, you will expose a lot more muscle damage. First thing, and you will expose a lot of tendons, strengthening your tendons. Yeah. So the longer time when you spend more time on eccentrics, definitely will strengthen more than just muscle. Your joints and tendons will actually need to learn how to hold the weight for a long time. All right. So 8 seconds eccentric squat is more forwards on accessories kind of thing, more for off-season work, where teaching the lifters to be tight for long hours. Teaches the lifters to stay tight for a longer period of time.
mm-hmm.
At the same time, he also expose the lifters to strengthen the tendon strengths and joint strengths. Yeah. So as closer to the comp, of course, eccentric, the lifters need to spend less time at the eccentric, all right? Because when close to comp, you want to keep the body to be everything optimal. You don't want to make your body recover more from the eccentric training. Yeah. So that's where things start to like from periodize again, like training close to the comp, less muscle damage, but more work for actually spark up the nervous system for the heavy lift itself. Yep. And at the same time, 8 seconds of eccentric squats is actually more texting on muscle skeletal training, whereas 3 seconds is much more on you can lift heavier, so it's much more on neurological side of the training. Yep. So on off-season work, lifters can actually focus more on strengthening the muscle, strengthening the skeletal muscle and tendons, and as close to comp, you don't want to actually make a lot more on muscle tearing. You want to actually keep the nervous system optimal and ready for the comp itself. So it has to also take consideration on the season of the lifter itself. Yeah, because during peak week, you don't want a lot of volume. You don't want a lot of things, and when during peaking, you actually want to stay in a state where like you just want to optimize your brain. You just want to optimize your central nervous system, and you just want to prepare for the lift. You don't want to actually recover from muscle damage or things like that. But off season, you got plenty of time. You got plenty of time to build up and stuff. So all those work have to be done in off season, and then when in season, magic will shows what have you done from the off seasons.
I think it goes the same way as bodybuilding, correct? Like the close to competition, you will need less tempo as well, right? I mean, like you said, prevent some damage to your muscles.
Spend more time on a concentric phase.
Concentric. Okay.
Yeah. So the goal of on bodybuilding periodization, it's more on, let's say, on off season. Of course, I got more resource. I got more time to cater my recovery. Then create more muscle damage is the goal for off season. But as in season coming in, it's all about looking shredded, and of course when close to comp, more training, less eating, and that's where the recovery is shit. Yeah. So when the recovery is shit, then the training has to tweak to more metabolic style, as in burn more calories, but not so much on texting the muscle, so that my recovery can cope with that. Yep.
The risk of injury close to competition is really high, so that's why you need to be concerned about that.
Because injury occurs have many. Injury happens. It's actually because of a lot of reasons, but mostly it's actually from calorie deficit for too long. Yeah, I mean, it actually makes sense because first thing you when you eat less, your recovery rate will actually slows down, and at the same time, if you cannot focus it well, there's also a risk and a chance to actually have higher chance on injury itself, because you're too tired sometimes, and sometimes injury happens just because of you're too tired to actually focus on the details on the exercise, or sometimes you may slip off on. Or maybe you
don't
drop
really
something.
think of the tempo anymore. You're just too tired, and then you just
correct. So like when bodybuilding close to comp, it's not about carrying as much weight. It's about burning off calories and and actually learn how to make a lot more mind-muscle connection to actually carry over for the posing itself.
Before we end this episode, do you have any
Okay. I think most important for people out who are listening to this, if let's say you are just started to lift weights, you're just started to actually want to learn, want to know more about weight training itself. How heavy you lift is not the key point. It's your starting point will be more on technique acquisition, learning how to do exercise properly, and then weight itself is just a tool to actually stimulate your muscle. So like if you're doing 10 reps, your struggle point will be just starting from 8, 9, and 10. So you want to actually struggle from 8 rep, and then 9 and 10, and then slowly progressive overload. So heavy weights is not always the goal, the go-to to look for. It's about learning how to do the exercise properly. Yeah.
Thank you, Nicholas.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Right. I hope that I can see you again. We talk about another topic.
Yes.
For another time. Okay.
Yep.
So yeah, thank you guys for watching.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and have a good night.